this was an exciting and informative day, and I'm so fascinated. I said to one of the Icelandic visitors that I feel as though I've learned something more about a culture that I have not been so aware of. And so I so appreciate that when we talk about gender equality, and I want to speak for a moment about gender equity, we're not only looking at the city of Seattle and King County and our region and our state, but we're learning from our global sisters, and that's fascinating to me. So here's my twist. At the Office for Civil Rights, we talk a lot about how we move the needle for those that are most marginalized. And that is not only for women, but it's also for race, national origin, sexual orientation, gender nonconforming. So when we talk about gender equity, we are not looking for the same rights. We're not looking for gender equality. We all get the same thing, because we know that when policies and procedures and cultural underpinnings have kept one group up, in our case, white men, we know that we have to be very intentional about the strategies that we employ so that we conscientiously focus our resources on those that need the greatest lift. And so we look at equity, because with equity, we're looking at what are the outcomes that we're seeking. We don't live in such abundance that we have a limitless area of resources. So we know that we have to sometimes rearrange our resources so that we focus directly on those who need the greatest lift. We are fascinated with the realization, and we're disturbed by the realization, that when we talk and look at those who are most marginalized in the world of gender, our gender world, that it is often transgender people. And what do we do to lift those that are most marginalized? If we are thinking about strategies that lift those who suffer the most, the great news is that at the same time, we lift all of those who are above. It is a natural element. When we put water to lift the boat, all boats surrounding it are lifted at the same time. We know that in our world, in our society here in the city of Seattle, transgender people suffer the greatest unemployment. They suffer the lowest income. They also suffer the greatest risk of violence. We know, and you heard from Haeok Kim, who's my boss, that when we are focused merely on the pay scale for our white sisters, that we may inadvertently leave behind our Native American sisters who have the lowest pay rate in Washington State. And we know that Latinas and African Americans are still very much below white women. We also know one other interesting statistic. We know that white women earn more than black men in the city of Seattle. We know that race matters. It's these intersections of different oppressions that complicate the equity that we're seeking. So we have to use strategies that get to those greatest number of intersections so that we can identify what strategies we will use to lift everyone. So I want to thank you for all that I've learned. I also want to just give a pitch for how proud I am of the city in which we live, the mayor who has been so attentive to this issue. When the mayor took office in early 2014, he immediately appointed 2 deputy mayors, both women. I was very lucky to be appointed came in with him in his administration, and I was not alone for the new directors that came on board. Not only women, but women of color. So this is a man who has really been living his talk. He has been pushing the needle and pushing us to think of creative strategies that really actually move the needle towards equity for all. So thank you for coming to our city. thank you for sharing all the great information that you've had to offer. And I look forward to visiting you in Iceland one day.